Today's video is going to be a get ready with me talking all about the second book in the Fourth Wing series, which is called Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I actually finished this last night, so I was very excited to film another one of these like storybook get ready with me's. They actually are super fun to film, and I love talking about the books that I have finished reading. So I'm just going to start. I just wanted to say I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I don't even know when this video is going to be up, probably like next week or something, but I am just so behind on uploading videos because I've been reading a lot rather than editing or filming or even watching YouTube. I would much rather just read at night, so that's why I just haven't been uploading as much. So basically, Iron Flame takes place right after Violet finds out that her brother is still alive. Like, it literally just goes right into Violet discovering that her brother is alive. And the whole like first two chapters is basically like Brennan explaining what happened and why he had to hide that he was alive for so long. And basically Violet is now, she had woken up at the end of the first book. I mean, not the last book, the last book I read, and is now coping with the reason why her brother is alive. And the reason why Xaden would have to keep his distance for so long in the first book is because he obviously knew that her brother was alive, because he was flying back and forth from Arteria, being with her brother, so they could, because Xaden and Brennan are on the side of the revolution, which basically means that a lot more what got revealed in this book about the Dragon School and the Kingdom and General Sorengale, which is Violet's mother, and the military, and the fact that basically the military and the royalty would hide from their citizens that Venin and Wayrin were alive, and also would hide it from all of the cadets, that the cadets didn't even know why they were so easily expendable. And also she also goes into that a lot more in this book as well, explaining why the cadets are so vulnerable and that they are desensitizing the cadets to death. So basically this book is broken down into two parts. The first part is basically all about Violet and her constant conflict of telling her friends, her family, about everything that she had found out. And she basically struggles avoiding her friends in the first half of the book on, you know, that she can't really tell them everything that is going on because it would put their lives in jeopardy. So it's basically her whole conflict on why she can't tell her friends. And also you find out a lot more about her mother in this, the first half of the book. And, you know, basically her mother is all about her position, her power, and she would do anything in order to save the kingdom, not really to help her family or help her children. She doesn't even know that Brennan is alive, and neither does Mira. Violet's the only one that knows that he's alive out of her family. And then she brings Mira in later on because Mira goes to where Xaden is. So now basically the whole first part of the book is also about Xaden and Mira. I mean, not Xaden and Mira. Xaden and Violet spending a lot of time apart, but also Violet is not with Xaden for most of the first part of the book because of everything that happened in the last half of the first book that she felt like that she couldn't trust him. And but y'all know that they're gonna get back together in this book. Like, I didn't think it was gonna be after part 1 basically that they end up getting back together, but it's kind of inevitable that they were gonna end up together. But I thought it wasn't gonna be until like possibly the 3rd book. I didn't think it was gonna happen in this one. But I really love that this book was broken down into 2 parts, because basically the whole first half of the book is about, you know, Violet's constant conflict of keeping the rebellion and the revolution to herself and everything that's going on at Arteria. And then the second half of the book, basically it gets revealed that that Arteria exists, and that, you know, other cadets are there with like Imogene and Xaden and all these other cadets that have joined the revolution and can't tell like their friends or their family because it has to be kept secret. So and basically they know why the what has been going on with all the secrets of the kingdom. Now there's a bunch of stuff that does happen in this book, so hopefully I can relay the information to you, but I didn't really write that much stuff down this time. There wasn't really as many like aha moments in this book as there was in the first one, but she does explain a lot of why certain things happen or certain things are kept to certain characters until the very end, which I really, really liked about this book as well. So basically the Xaden, since he is now older than Violet, he has to leave to be stationed at I forget if it's not Arteria. I think it's a different kingdom. Like, basically he's stationed at the front because he is, you know, older than Violet, so he is a more mature rider, so he now actually has to defend the kingdom and keep them safe. But also, like, he really wouldn't have to be apart from Violet for this long if it wasn't for the character named Varish. And he basically hates Violet. He doesn't want her to be with Xaden really at all. He just wants to torture her and find out what she knows that happened in the first battle with the Wayron and the Venin in the first book. So he gives her, you know, a really hard time in this book and doesn't let Violet see Xaden that often because he's constantly like catching her doing things and wants to keep them apart as much as possible. But also, it's really stupid for him to do this because even though he's all for protecting the kingdom and whatever, this also hurts the kingdom because Terran and Sagal are mated, which Terran is Violet's dragon and Sagal is Xaden's dragon, and they have to see each other as much as they can. You know, even though they're dragons, they still gotta, you know, see each other because it's actually really bad for the dragons for them to be apart this long. So basically, Xaden and Violet are only allowed leave to see each other only like once a weekend. They're not even allowed to really spend the whole weekend together. They can only get like 24 hours. So they use every opportunity when they're on leave to be able to see each other, but Varish makes it like impossible for mostly Violet to be able to see Xaden, but also for Terran to see Sagal. So it's a lot of that in the first book. I mean, in the first part of the book, of Varish preventing Violet to see Xaden, which again is really stupid. but also like Varish will do anything in his power to get information out of Violet because he doesn't trust her. So basically, Violet has to keep all of this to herself and from her friends, meaning that she has to avoid talking to Rhiannon and her two other friends, Sawyer and Redoc. So, and you get more of Sawyer and Redoc in this book as well. And they're both so funny. I think they're the, like, comic relief of this book. Even though, I actually really like Rebecca Yaros's, comedy. I think that she's a very funny writer. But also in a lot of the books that I've been reading, I've been, like, laughing out loud. I've been really enjoying the authors' books that I've been reading. Granted, I've only really read, like, 3 authors in the past, like, 2 months. Matt Haig, Christina Loren, and Rebecca Yarros. And now I'm actually, I actually started the next, Christina Loren book that I wanted to read. I picked it up, like, I think a week or 2 ago. Basically when I was like 100, 200 pages into Iron Flame. So she is so conflicted on whether or not she can tell her friends. And Xaden basically says to her that you have to shield them out and avoid, you know, telling them everything as much as possible. But this is kind of impossible for Violet because she ends up realizing that she needs her friends. So she ends up telling them everything that is going on at the end of the first part. And basically the second part is all about the cadets now knowing what is going on with the kingdom. And originally Xaden doesn't want Violet to tell everyone. He said he was already upset that she told her friends, but he understood eventually that they needed to know at some point. But also, Xaden is still keeping secrets from Violet because there's a lot that she doesn't know to keep Xaden alive. And you find out a lot of this at the end of this book. So, but I wasn't as emotionally attached to this one as I was the first one. Like, I didn't end up crying in this one like I did in the first book. But I still thought that this book was great. So, basically, Violet also befriends a scribe in the archives of this book, and her name is Yesenia, but also, or Yesenia, or whatever, and basically, Xaden doesn't really trust anyone that Violet is even close to, really, at this point, because he doesn't know if she can trust anyone, and he doesn't trust even any of her friends, except for the ones that know about, Arteria, like Imogene and Eric. They're like really the only 2 people, and a handful of other cadets that know about Arteria. So, basically, and, you know, Violet keeps on having dreams about the Venin and the Wayrin a lot, and so does Xaden. You find out later that he actually is having nightmares about everything that happened as well. And then also the author kind of drops a bombshell in the middle of like this book that Jack Barlow is actually alive. And when this happened in the book, I was like, seriously? I was like, I really thought it was really absurd that he ended up being alive. And I'm like, really? So, but then she ends up explaining why he's alive around, like, you know, in the middle of, like, part 2 of the second half is that you end up finding out that he is actually Venom, because the way that oh my god. Sorry, I'm just reading a group chat that I'm in for plans that I have on Saturday. But I'm gonna get into why Jack Barlow is alive in a little bit. I just want to grab my sponge, and then so I can talk more about the book. So I'll be right back. Okay, so the reason that Jack Barlow ends up being alive is because he's Venom, and the reason why is because the way that Violet kills, oh my god, why is there hair? Why what is because the way that Violet kills Jack Barlow in the first book is that when she strikes him, she crushes him in a mountain or under a mountain with a venom. So he ends up becoming Venom. And that's why he was able to survive that. But also, throughout this book, there is a mender named, what is his name? Nolan. Or Nolan. It's spelled like Nolon. And he is a mender. I think I already said that. And he has been mending Violet for like a really long time. But also throughout the book, Violet ends up noticing that Nolan looks very disheveled and is looking very sleepy and looks like he hasn't had sleep for days. And then also Rhiannon has been talking to Violet before Violet tells Rhiannon everything that she's been noticing, that Nolan is looking like he's sleepy and looks like that he might be working on first years, or they are interrogating first years in the medical wing because of Varish, which they don't usually do. But also the cadets know that they are prone to interrogation at any point with Varish, and also by any of the professors, because the interrogation is supposed to prepare the cadets for future interrogation when they actually are captured by the enemy and are interrogated by an enemy. So this is all supposed to help them be prepared to be interrogated by an enemy. And they have to use like their survival skills, or like their signets in order to survive interrogation, and also to not provide any information if they are tortured in interrogation. But also, the cadets are prone to any form of torture or interrogation by their professors, or by the general, or by Varish. So there's like one part in the book where they are tested with interrogation in like an interrogation class, and they're left in like the forest, and basically they are supposed to like get out of the forest with the teamwork of their classmates and their cadets. But they are given like this potion that blocks out not only their communication with their dragons, but also their signets. So basically they have to rely on their communication with each other in order to get out of the forest. And they fail this, like, ridiculously bad, because they end up, like, not being able to get out because they are, starving and not being able to communicate with each other, even, because they start going a little bit delusional and a little bit crazy because they are dehydrated, they are hungry, and basically this leaves them vulnerable to actually being captured. So this, I don't know if this happens right after they were starving. I think they got mended and then by Nolan, and then they end up being captured again for real this time, because Varish ends up interrogating Violet and her squad, like Rhiannon and Redoc and Sawyer, but I think they're the only 4 that end up being captured, because I think she does something that upsets Varish in order for him to just interrogate Violet and her cadets. And her friends, not just cadets. So, but he specifically wants to interrogate Violet because, one, he wants all the information from Violet because he knows that she's hiding a lot of what Xaden is protecting, and also what she's protecting because of everything that's going on at Arteria. So he brings in Dane in order to read Violet's memories, and he ends up reading her memories, but he is really against this and he doesn't want to do it, but he eventually does because Varish is so convincing of, and also Dane has always been such a rule follower, and also is under Varish's command. And also, Varish is very convincing to get anybody to do anything for him, to be honest, because he knows people's weaknesses. That ends up being Varish's signet. So that's why Varish is such a dangerous character. So Dane ends up not doing this. Well, he does, actually, but then he makes a choice to save Violet from the torture. Like, he doesn't think that this is ethical, and he thinks that Varys shouldn't be doing this to Violet. So he ends up saving her, and then Xaden is able to find her because earlier in the book, actually, Violet receives a note about Xaden because this is how long they're apart for, that they don't know what's going on with each other. So I actually had a lot more to talk about in this book than I thought, so hopefully I'll be able to get it all in. There's a lot that goes on in this book. So earlier in the book, she receives like a note about Xaden, that he is wounded in an attack that happens, at the front. So she ends up, that's why he punishes her, because she just leaves. She doesn't care what the punishment is going to be. And then he ends up interrogating her when she gets back, Varish. He's like so upset and pissed off at her that he's just going to capture her and her friends, and that she's going to pay for everything that she did, because she didn't even have leave to see him. She just believed that he was injured and he was fatally wounded, that she goes and just up and leaves without having leave. So when this happens to Violet, and after like everything is, like the potion wears off and Dane saves Violet, Xaden ends up coming to her. Well, I think he comes to her rescue, like, literally that night or something, and helps Violet kill Varish, but so does Dane. But also Xaden isn't 100% sure that he can trust Dane, because they believe that Dane was the one that that, set them up for, battling the Venom and the Wayron in the first book in the War Games. So he doesn't know if he can fully trust Violet. I mean, not trust Violet, trust Dane. But Dane ends up proving himself. And she never really, like, fully trusts Dane still. She's still very hesitant about trusting Dane. But Dane ends up joining, Violet and Xaden, because after they kill Varish, then they know they have to leave the school. But also there was, like, kind of an issue for me on after they killed Varish. Not much really happens to Violet when she ends up coming back to the school. Like, they don't end up really punishing her at all. Like, they talk about it, and, like, General Sorengale is, like, defending her about, killing Varish, but also she doesn't really receive any real consequences for doing it. Because they are well aware that she killed him. But it's like, wouldn't she receive, like, more of a severe punishment because she does come back after she leaves Arteria again, because she realizes that she can't stay in Arteria. But I think after this, Mira ends up coming there and then finds out that Brennan is alive. So, she gets really upset with Brennan, and she ends up, like, punching him in the face. And I thought that was so funny, but also, like, she's really upset and hurt that she didn't know that he was alive. So, what else was I going to say? There's a lot of information, so. Basically, after this happens, the cadet, Violet wants to tell the other cadets, and that's why she goes back to, God, that is pigmented. I didn't think that was going to be that much on the lower lash line, but it's okay. Hopefully I can keep that to be a little bit more subtle. I'm probably just going to have to put some more concealer on. So she wants to inform the other cadets that this is going on because she ends up telling Rhiannon and Sawyer and Redoc everything that's going on, because she tells Xaden that I need my friends, and he's not happy about it. But she also wants to leave with Redoc and Sawyer and Rhiannon and bring them to Arteria when she comes back, because she has to tell them everything and also inform all the other cadets what's going on. And Xaden's really upset about this and is mad about it, because he's like, we can't fit everybody at Arteria. We don't even have enough beds. But she's, like, arguing with him and saying, I want to bring them here so they have a fighting chance of survival. Because they're still in the cadet school, and they're being, killed in the dragon school, every day, because they're still training to be a dragon rider. So they end up bringing all the cadets to Arteria. And basically, Violet is counting down the days that the school and Arteria is going to be invaded by Venom and Wayron, but also the military and the royalty aren't warning their citizens that the Venom and the Wayron are alive. So she thinks that she should warn them and tell them so her friends have a fighting chance to survive. So they bring them all to Arteria. So basically that's the whole second half of the book, is having the cadets there. So then, of course, they know that Arteria and the school is going to get attacked eventually. So basically, this leaves General Sorengale with a choice. Or actually leaves Violet with a choice, because General Sorengale ends up coming to Arteria after Violet and Xaden go back. and realize that, they're better off staying in Arteria with the rest of the cadets, and they know that they're going to be attacked soon. So since Violet's mother just believes that it's all a bunch of horse shit, that but then they end up knowing that they're going to be attacked, they go to Violet and Xaden and Brennan, and her mother ends up finding out that Brennan is alive, and they don't really say anything about that he's alive. She's just like, what the fuck? She just finds out, Violent. I'm calling her nickname that Xaden calls her, which is Violence. Which I think is so funny that he calls her that. It's such a cheesy nickname, but also it's perfect because Violet really needs to control her power, or has to be taught how to control her power in this book. Because if she doesn't control her power, it can be completely unleashed, but also she's the most important weapon for this kingdom. And that's the only way that really Violet's mother has seen Violet, is just as a weapon. Because Violet can command lightning, because that's always been her signet. So then they are faced with a choice that they have to call Xaden and Brennan. Well, Xaden and his, I think Gryphon are also there, which is also thought to be their enemy, but then it ends up being their ally, because you find that out at the end of the book. So she has to come to ask for their aid to protect them in the battle, or they know that they're going to be attacked soon. But Xaden refuses to help them, and so does Brennan, because, they don't really have any obligation to help them. And Violet feels bad about this, and so does Mira. But then they realize that, they don't really have any obligation to help them. But then they end up helping them. And basically the reason why I brought up Jasenia earlier is because she ends up being an important character in the archives, because she ends up befriending Violet, and they work together about finding ways to defeat the Venin and the Wayren in the next attack, because they both know that they are going to be attacked soon. So they end up working together. This looks very dramatic. I like it. I like it a lot. So then they know that the battle is going to happen, and basically you don't find out what the Iron Flame actually really is until 3/4 of the way into the book. And basically it's a stone that contains immense power to raise the wards in Arteria, and also to protect her mother and her kingdom. But also Sorrengail's mother, General Sorrengail, believes that, I'm getting a little bit hungry, believes that the wards will always hold, and they don't need their protection, and that they're not going to break through them. But Jasenia and Xaden and everybody and Violet know that the wards aren't going to stay forever if they don't find out how to unleash the Iron Flame Stone's power. And basically they need the diary of the old king from the archive, and basically they have to break into the archives together in the middle of the book in order to find these diaries and to find out how the flame works. So they end up being caught, but and that's why Varys has to interrogate her. I think that ends up being the reason, but also because like he has to find out what they took from the archives, but he never ends up finding out what it actually is because they end up killing him. So the battle happens, and the stone basically means that you need 7 riders or 7 dragons or whatever in order to unleash the power. But it ends up being like Violet is the one that has to unleash the power, because when they actually end up using it in the battle, the rest of the riders aren't there to save or use the power with Violet from the stone, because they're all battling Venom at that time. But also the other character that's important is Sloane. Hold on. Okay, so basically the battle happens, and General Sorengale... Wait, no, I have to talk about Sloane. So Sloane is Liam's sister, and basically has to oh my god, Jesus Christ, never mind, I don't have to respond to her if I don't have to. So anyway, I'm getting like brain farts because I'm hungry. Maybe I need to eat something. Hold on. Okay, so anyway, let me finish doing my bronzer and stuff. I just got really thrown off because I'm really hungry, so I'm sorry. I wanted to use like possibly this as a bronzer, but I still feel like it's gonna be so dark on me. So I didn't think I'm going to do that. I've just been using a bunch of Blend Buddy products today. So I don't know, I feel like these are both gonna be too dark. I just feel like they're gonna be way too pigmented and dark for me. So I'm still gonna use both of these as my blush and highlight. I'm just gonna use let's use this one. I'm gonna use my Marc Jacobs bronzer. Why not? I feel like using it today. So anyway, yeah, this is definitely lighter for me. The other ones are going to be too dark. They're just like almost as pigmented as eyeshadows, if not more pigmented. So like, I just want to use something that I know that's going to be lighter. So anyway, Sloane is Liam's sister, and she absolutely hates Violet because she blames Violet for his death, and because she knows that he sacrificed himself to save Violet. So basically, like at the second half of the book, Rebecca doesn't really like explain why they resolved their problems and why she doesn't hate her anymore, but it's basically because Sloane joins Violet and Xaden and everyone to join the revolution. And that's basically why they don't hate each other anymore. But then you find out at the end of the book that Sloane is a siphon, which means that she has an immense amount of power, and she could actually raise the wards and defeat the Venom and Wayron and whatever to save the kingdom or whatever. So, and the last part, because you know, like, somebody's gonna end up dying, like, during the battle and everything, that's important. But the only person that ends up dying in this book is, I mean, of course, there's, like, cadets dying, like, all the time. But the person that ends up dying in this book is actually Violet's mother. And the reason why she gets killed is because she sacrifices herself during, like, the last few moments of the battle because she prevents Violet from raising the Iron Flame and its power because General Sorrengail gets there with Sloane and she sacrifices herself so Sloane can prevent the power of the Iron Flame, and she would just use her power instead, but it requires a human sacrifice to the stone, and it ends up being her mother. So because Violet tries to raise the wards with the stone for, one attempt, but she ends up failing because Eric actually pulls her away and has Sloane, and Sloane ends up doing it, and her mother ends up being killed. So I am so hungry. Oh my god. I just had some pretzels, but I'm still fucking starving. Like, I might bring some apple with me and just like eat that in the car. But I know I'm gonna pick up food for us, but the place I'm picking up food from is like one of our favorite places to eat. Oh my god. It's so good. So then Xaden is separated from Violet during like this whole time. And then I'm messaging people and I just want to leave and I'm starving. I had pumpkin waffles this morning because I wasn't that hungry because I had like the munchies last night and I ate a lot. So yeah, you can figure that out for yourself. But yeah, I'm hungry. I don't know if you got that the first like 20 times that I said it, but yeah. So anyway, Xaden is separated from Violet during most of this time because he has to fight Venin and Wayrin and still protect the kingdom and the cadets and everything by fighting. But then you find out in the last chapter of the book, it always changes to Xaden's perspective in the last few pages of the books, which I really love that she does that, or that she kept that style this time as well. And basically you find out that Xaden becomes a Wayrin or Venin. I always forget which one it is. But basically he's fucked because I don't think he's always been Wayrin. I think that like the Wayrin transforms him. I forget how. Correct me if I'm wrong on how he ends up becoming Wayrin, because I'm not exactly sure. But that's basically what happens at the end of the book, is now it leaves off where Xaden is going to have to control his power in order to love Violet still, because you will eventually become fully Wayrin. And that's why, Jack is, captured, and why he could survive and everything after, Sorrengail tried to kill him. But also you find out that Xaden has a second signet because he is bonded to his father's dragon, and the reason why he can have a second signet is because since he's bonded to his father's descendant's dragon, and since he is a descendant as well, he can have a second signet. And Violet doesn't know what it is, but it's actually something that's very dangerous that could get him killed, and he ends up being an inholistic, or he's like basically an intentionalist, which means that he can read somebody's intentions. He can read anybody. So Violet thinks that Xaden has used this on her multiple times, and now she finally finds out, what he's been keeping from her for such a long time. But, again, he keeps a lot of stuff from her. She also finds out that her mother was the one that drew the scars on Xaden's back, and he didn't tell her that either. But also, like, throughout the book, Xanon says, you don't ask me the right questions, but the reason why he wants her to ask is because then he can read her intentions, but also he knows that she would be intending to ask these certain questions, like about her mother. So it's all like, frustrating conversation, and it's so funny, like, when I see the TikToks about, like, Xanon and Violet's conversations are always so ridiculously frustrating. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say that you find out about Xanon? I'm blanking. Hold on. Oh, and also, like, since Xanon is still avoiding Violet sometimes is because of his second segment, and then you find that out at the end of the book, why he's been avoiding her more and not telling her everything and all of his secrets is because of this. So I thought that was pretty cool. And also, Andarna, I have to talk about, this is the last thing I'm going to say because I need to go after this, but basically, Andarna is Violet's second dragon, and she turns out, because she's always been a weak dragon that can't really fly, and you actually find out that she can never bear a rider in this book because she can't fly long distances. She either has to be helped by Terran, or she can only fly for like a certain amount of time. Like, she can't fly that far. So she can't, like, make the journey to Arteria without Terran helping her. So, Violet tells Andarna to hide in, like, the end of the book during the battle because she knows that she could get hurt. And she hides in, like, a mountain, and then she kills one of the main Venin or Wayron, and she, like, snaps its neck or whatever. And then she comes down to Violet and meets her where the stone is. And basically Violet figures out why Andarna has always been different is because she is actually a 7th breed of a dragon. And there's only 6 breeds of dragon that they are known, or that are known. So that I think that's why, because, like, at the end of the book, also, Jasenia runs to Violet and talks about, like, when she was transcribing, like, the diaries, she said, for some reason, it said 7 dragons, or 7 of this, and then the other diary said 6 of this, and Violet keeps on saying, this is a typo, but then she ends up finding out the reason why they said 7 is that it wasn't actually ever recorded. It just said 7, like the number, is because Andarna is a 7th breed of a dragon. And also, you find out the reason why Violet was bonded to 2 dragons was because, I think I said this last night. Hold on. Okay, so I just put my lipstick on so I can finish my thought. But basically, Andarna knew before she was even hatched that she was going to bond to Violet because she knew that Violet was the rider that the kingdom or the school was waiting for. And she was not she was an egg for like 650 years, and then she finally hatches because Violet comes to the school. So even though she's an adolescent by the middle of this book, but whatever. I guess because they grow fast. I have no idea. So yeah, and also Andarna in like the middle of the book has to go into like a hibernation for like a couple of months, and it was only supposed to be like 2 months, but then she ended up being asleep for almost like 4 or 5 months. So Violet kept on saying to Terran, like, when is Andarna waking up? Why is it she hasn't woken up yet? And he says, like, sometimes it takes longer for certain dragons, but then it was actually because she was a 7th breed. So, yeah, I really still enjoyed the book. I think I liked the first half of this one more than the second half. I mean, I still loved the book, but I think that I was a little bit more emotionally attached to the first book than I was the second one. I didn't end up crying in this one, and I was just like concerned about them, but I feel like I was more exhilarated about the first book, but I still really enjoyed this, and I'm still really excited when the third book will be coming out. I'm not sure when. I'm sure it's going to be coming out next year at some point. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. But I would give this one just under 5 stars. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. I still really enjoyed it. I just think the only criticism that I have about this one is that, well, 1 and 2 are the, just like not brushing up certain conflicts, but at the same time, you can kind of figure that out as a reader, like why she didn't have to, write about that. But also, the only thing is that sometimes I feel like she puts like the steamy parts about, or when Xaden and Violet are hooking up, when she needs something to say. Like, I feel like it's just filler in this book sometimes. That's the only thing, is that, like, I know that that was going to be in this book. Like, I have no problem with that kind of writing, and I don't care. Like, but I just feel like at certain parts it was a little unnecessary, because it's like you just want more story. Like, but I understand that that's going to be in this book, but sometimes there was like pages of it happening, like 6 or 7 pages, and it's like, okay, like, can we move on to like more stories? So that'd be the only thing. I still really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at WW819, and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. And let me know what you guys thought of this book and if you finished it. If not, please don't watch this video. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. Okay, I know I just said bye, but I forgot to tell you guys what I used in the video. So I just used my ColourPop Party Proof Primer, my Kajal Lip Oil, and then the Pretty Fresh Powder by ColourPop. And then for my eyeshadow, I went into the Blend Bunny Cosmetics All Done Up palette, because I haven't used this in quite a while, and I keep on pulling it out to use it. So I was like, I just want to use it today finally. And it turned out so pretty. I love this palette. So I went in with Unexpected in the crease. Then I darkened it up with Transform, and then I used Doe-Eyed on the outer corners. And then for the lid, I just went in with Centerfold. And then for the brow bone, I went in with Knockout. And then for the inner corners, I used Starlit. And then I just took some of Transform on the lower lash line. And I really like how it turned out. Super pretty. I always love Blend Bunny. I just wanted to use it at least once before December. And then for my face, I used my Do It Spray and the Say Star Glow Super Gel Primer. And then I just used my Rare Beauty Tinted Moisturizer in the shade 10N. And then for my concealer, I just used the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind in the shade 9.5. Then I set my under eyes with the Maybelline Fit Me powder. I just decided to use this one today. And then for my face, I just used the ColourPop Pretty Fresh. And then I just used the Limitless Brown by Makeup Forever on my waterline. And then I used my Act Natural Mascara by ColourPop on the top. And the Lash Discovery by Maybelline on the bottom. And then the only thing I said that I was using was the Marc Jacobs bronzer, but then I also went into the Bare Cheeks palette for my blush, and I just used Just a Touch by Blend Bunny, and that's like my favorite everyday neutral blush. I probably have used this like 5 times or 6 times at this point. I need to start using other products, but it's just such a good everyday. I love this palette so much, you guys. I've used it so much this year. And then for my highlight, I wanted to go into the Forget Me Not palette. And then I used the shade Magical. I could have used this shade, but I feel like I've used that one a bit more. So this one goes just as well. And then I just set with the spray again, and then set with my ColourPop Brow Blush Gel. And then for my lips, I went into my Marc Jacobs lipstick in the shade Aeneas, because I just wanted like this cooler toned nude. So yeah, that's it. Bye!